Hey, really nice to see so many faces from all different parts of the world. That's a really cool thing. Hey, I'll give you the heads up in a moment. If there is someone online that is willing, I'm after a participant, I was going to say willing victim then, but that's the wrong terminology. But I want to play a bit of a thought experiment with someone, but I'm after someone who is highly punctual, like a person that has to be there, is always there on time. So if you wouldn't mind, if you're that kind of person and you wouldn't mind playing a bit of a thought experiment with me, this is recorded, so I'm just giving you the heads up on that. Then I would love to hear from you. So I'll make that invitation in just one moment. But let me just say, I hope that I make it through this 10 minutes. I've been so sick the last couple of weeks, so I've got cold sores. I said to Mandy, I'm just going to let the crew know this, because if they're looking at me thinking that dude looks like he's about to die, that's part of the reason. I'm just sort of climbing way back out, so not firing on all cylinders, but nonetheless, really nice to have you have you here joining us. All right. Any not victims, any participant? Is anyone here that's highly punctual that would be happy to play a thought experiment with me? Maybe just unmute yourself and say hello.
I am not super punctual.
You're not super punctual.
No,
Okay.
but I'm always there.
But you're always there. So you're relatively punctual, or how right?
Yes, I'm always within 3 to 5 minutes, but for some reason I can never quite get it on the dot.
Okay, all right. Well, let me just put you in waiting. Is there anyone here that is always, it's not like if you are there on time, you are late? Any of those kind of characters online?
Yeah, I think I'm like that.
You're like that. Okay, so who have we got here? Is it
Yeah, Aruni.
Arnie. Okay, Arnie. All right, really nice. Arnie, are you happy to play a thought experiment with me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, for
Yeah.
all of our benefit, and everyone else can listen in here. So here we go. So Arnie, let's say that you are you've scheduled to meet someone, and let's say it was 10 o'clock, and it is now a couple of minutes past 10 o'clock because things haven't gone well, and you are running late. You know that it's still going to be another, say, 10 minutes before you arrive. Your phone's gone flat, so you have no way of contacting that person. Tell me about some of the ways that you might be behaving in that particular situation. What happens?
Yeah, I think I will rush into some kind of anxiety and I develop uneasiness within me.
Ah,
And yeah. After learning about lift and jumpstart and everything, I have learned to realize these emotions, but I mean, my natural instincts were like that
yeah.
some
Okay.
time back.
All right. Let's stay with this unease for a moment. So I'm interested you even use those terminologies. You're anxious. It's really interesting. If someone who is a highly punctual person, they're running late, you'll see them. Like, let's say that they're driving to the event. They're like leaning forward. You know, it's these things that make zero difference. You don't get there quicker if you actually lean forward on that steering wheel, but nonetheless, it's worth a try. So it's like, and then as you're driving along, you're looking up ahead and like, how many is that person merging? Are they, how many in this lane? And then the traffic lights, like you're counting cars, like 6 cars, but that car looks like it might be slow. That's a truck, and we start to behave, right? So I imagine that these behaviors are like just coming to you, like you're behaving in certain ways that you're trying to get the hurry on to get there. And the question is, and why do you behave like that? And you've already told us, because you're feeling unsettled. You know, you're unease. You feel you're anxious about this, and so what's happening is those feelings that are actually driving these behaviors. Right now, I'm going to share my screen because we're going to keep going. I haven't finished with you yet, but let me just share this with you. Okay, so this whole idea that, and I'm going to build on this whole idea that we know that people's behaviors are often stemming from how they feel, right? So it's feelings that drive their behaviors. But I want to go a little bit further than that, because here's the question I want to ask you. Why is it that when you are in that scenario, when you're running late, why do you feel anxious? Why do you feel uneasy? Tell me about that.
Because I am trying to maintain some standards that I have to be there on time. I'm following that concept.
Right. Tell me, what do you mean by a standard? What do you mean by that?
I think I have a feeling that is the correct way. Otherwise, I'm wasting someone else's time, and I need to be there by that time somehow. So
Yeah.
that is a bottom line.
I love it. You know what? You've been an excellent example, and thank you for being so willing. Here's what's
You're
happening: is you're actually describing to me about a set of beliefs that you have. So I'm going to imagine that you have beliefs, for example, that you talked about a standard, but you know that it, you know, you probably have a belief that it's, say, rude to be late, that, you know, it's a poor reflection on you as a person if you are late. And so what's happening is this, and let's just flesh this out to the next level, is that what you're actually describing to me is that you have a set of beliefs, and those beliefs influence how you feel. And it's those feelings that then drive your behaviors. And we actually know that this is really, really pervasive. In fact, I'm fascinated in the behavior change literature. And what we know is that people have a whole host of beliefs, and those beliefs serve as the reference for how they feel, which then determines how they behave. I'll give you a really interesting insight. I came from a family, my wife, she's highly punctual, right? So, and I've been married a long time now. And so I've gone through a re-education process, and I'm a lot better at being there on time. But before that process occurred, I came from a family who were always late, like literally always late. My mum was always late. But here's the interesting thing: before you punctual people get judgy, I know you wouldn't do that, but what's really interesting, if you talk with my mum, I remember her as a kid saying things like this: you know what? People appreciate if you give them a little bit more time to get ready. Right. So she had this really fascinating, very different belief to what you have. Not a belief that it's rude to be late, and it's disrespectful and to be not punctual. She had a belief that people appreciate it if you give them a little bit more time to get ready, and so therefore it's a good thing. And so hence, when she was running a bit late, like that scenario I just put you in, do you think that she got anxious and felt, you know, concerned and uneasy about that? No, in fact, she probably felt a little bit good about it, because I'm doing the right thing here. My belief says that, you know, it's a good thing, you know, people appreciate that. So felt better. So then the behavior that those feelings drove were very, very different. So here's this really interesting, and I've just picked that as a little scenario. But what we know is that people's beliefs drive how they feel, which influences how they behave. And as Aristotle said, because we are what we repeatedly do, it influences what we become. And so hence the title for today's little short presentation. And this is the seed that I'd love to sow and take some time to reflect on, is that, you know, we actually become what we believe. Our beliefs drive how we feel, which influences how we behave, which influences what we become. And it's quite interesting, you know, the behavior change literature is very, very strong and clear on this. Sorry, has everyone seen my slides, by the way? Yeah, good. I remember I'm very fascinated by why we humans do what we do. Like, we are interesting creatures, and trying to understand human behavior is really, really complex. And trying to actually help change human behavior even becomes more complex than that. But I do remember when this study came out, and this, you can read the title there, it was a scoping review of all the sort of behavioral theories and behavior change theories. And I remember seeing this thinking, oh, at last, someone's cracked the code. You know, at least at last we'll finally understand what it is, why we humans do what we do. And this was the line in the abstract of the article. They said, we've identified 82 theories. I thought they were going to provide some clarity, and all they did is just make the thing more complex. And they said, so, you know what, given there are all these theories, we can distill some key themes that emerge from this, from all the research that's been done. And here's the simplified model on why we humans do what we do. This is what behavior, you can see behaviors at the end there. Here are the factors that contribute to it. And in fact, they were, I really like this. You can see right at the other end of the diagram, they said, and there's probably other stuff too, actually, that we still don't know. So they just sort of labeled it with other factors there. But what if you, and I don't expect you to do this, but if you take a deep dive and actually look at what's in that model, what you can see highlighted here is that beliefs just keep coming to the fore. Beliefs, for example, they talk about behavioral beliefs. It's whether you actually, what you think about that particular behavior. That is eating healthy really worth it? Is moving really worth that while? Normative beliefs they talk about. It's what you believe about what other people believe about you will actually shape how likely you are to do or not do certain things. Control beliefs, whether you actually believe that you have the ability to take charge and actually have an influence on this particular thing. This recurring theme that keeps coming up is that beliefs drive our behaviors, and hence we become what we believe. And what we know, and psychologists tell us this, is that, we've all got these hundreds, possibly thousands of beliefs roaming around up in our heads. And some of those beliefs are quite benign. Like, so for example, there's one, red is the best color. Excuse me. My youngest son, Caleb, he had a belief when he was a little tacker that yellow was the best color. And anyone who knows Caleb, my son, he went through a period of being called the yellow kid. Literally, there was not one item of clothing that kid didn't have that wasn't yellow. Like, he just had a belief that yellow is the best color. And hence, when he wore yellow, he felt feelings were good. And hence, those feelings kept driving him to do that behavior. And he became the yellow kid. He still loves yellow to this very day. And you know what? If someone wears lots of yellow, is that a good or bad thing? Nah, doesn't really matter. But you know what? There are some beliefs that we have in our heads that can actually have quite profound effects on our life. So for example, when we see, talking of kids again, when a kid somewhere along the line picks up a belief that they're not smart, and we hear kids say this, they believe that they're not smart. That influences how they feel. It influences how they behave. It influences what they become. When people come up with an idea that, I'm not financially, sound, I'm always going to be poor. And I've heard people say this. Well, you know what? That will influence how you feel, how you behave, what you become. And what's really quite fascinating is that, there are many stories of people who have that mindset, that belief etched in up here, that have actually won the lottery. And what's really fascinating is that we tend to return back to what we believe. People, they will lose it, within 5 years, they've blown the lot, nothing to show for it, because we keep coming back, we become what we believe. Excuse me, I'm so sorry about that. I could go on, but it's really fascinating to me because I've come across people, one of my interest areas, when I meet someone who's lost a significant amount of weight and kept it off for a long period of time. And I love to interview these people. In fact, I'm a big believer that success leaves clues. And there's actually a thing called the National Weight Loss Registry, which actually keeps records of people who have lost a lot of body weight and then kept it off for an extended period of time. So whenever I bump into a person like that, I always say to them, tell me what's been allowed you to be successful when most people aren't. As we know, most people aren't successful in that endeavor. And I had one particular gentleman one time said something to me that was just so insightful. And he said, I'm so sorry about this. He looked at me and he said, you know what? He said, this is just who I am now. What he actually articulated, he said, you know what? I lost all this weight and this is who I am now. This is just who I am now. You see, he'd formed a new belief about how he saw himself. And when you have a new belief, then all of a sudden you start to feel differently, you behave differently, you become differently. And he's continued to be able to maintain that, that really quite amazing journey that's so challenging for many people to do. And so here's my question, and here's the time we'd love to spend some time thinking about today. over the past, month or so, I'd love you to reflect on, what beliefs do I have up here? We all acquire these beliefs. We all have them. And some of them don't serve us that well. Some do. What would that look like for you to maybe make some changes in that space? What would it look like for you to maybe reframe some of the beliefs that limit the way that you feel, the way that you behave, and the way that you become? It's a really interesting and valuable exercise to do something like that. So I'm going to hand it back to Mandy, and we got a little bit of time to reflect on those questions that I have for you there. And sorry that I coughed incessantly, and I'm only hanging in there.